A bomb explosion has killed 1 and injured 3 outside the office of a radical pro-ISIS magazine in Istanbul late on Wednesday night. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, and the motive for the attack is still unknown. Police are now investigating, and the magazine Adimlar regularly publishes angry anti-American content, including articles that celebrate terrorists. In October, during an interview with CNN, the magazine's chief editor Ali Osman Zor defended and praised the actions of the ultra-violent jihadist group, ISIS. Jose, Mr. Zor, who is a self-proclaimed Islamic revolutionary, is pretty known for the things that he said and how he's praised ISIS, his very anti-American way of thinking. He says that ISIS is just a natural response to Western imperialism in the Middle East, as well as Kurdish and Shiite Muslims, the way that they treat the Sunnis. So for a long time, his magazine has spewed out a lot of hate towards the West, right? And we're talking about in a country that's Turkey, that kind of straddles East and West. Yeah. So to see ISIS-linked violence in Istanbul is a really big thing, because up until now, besides the recent unrest that we've seen, Turkey has been pretty, untouched as far as attacks go and violence, other than the domestic violence and struggles that are within the country. So he was injured in the attack, and his brother was the one killed. He's now convinced that this attack on the satirical magazine, sorry, not satirical magazine, normal magazine, which is very anti-American, he says the CIA and the Israelis are behind it, which isn't surprising, but do you think that the U.S. could possibly have some sort of involvement in what anybody would call a terrorist attack?
I mean, it's hard to answer a question like that, but what is clear is that this is an angry person, already angry against the U.S., that is going through the loss of collaborators, a brother, and immediately the enemy number one is going to be the U.S. And it's easy to go out on a limb and saying this is the CIA. But it really, even if we entertain some conspiracy for a moment, it doesn't make any sense for the U.S. to go and create more unrest on the last Muslim country that is kind of skewing to a neutral attitude towards the U.S.
It's the only separation we have between Europe, Greece, and Syria and Iraq. It's literally the only thing standing in the way.
And it's also the gate to the West.
Yeah.
All the Western influence hubs in Turkey before it spreads to the East. So it makes very little sense to believe that the CIA will go and create, unless it's part of the plan, which I don't think so. But what it's really important to note is that we are seeing violence against supporters of ISIS. This is not violence that ISIS supporters inflicted on others, but it's a violence that an unknown group has inflicted on followers of ISIS. So we're seeing that the polarization of the issue is becoming violent both ways, which is scary because the people against ISIS are supposed to be the pacific, sense-making group, and now we're seeing that there's a group out there that is saying, well, we're going to play the same game.
Right.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous that we're seeing, in one end, violence to a magazine that it's thinkers, just like we saw in a completely different context with the Charlie Hebdo massacre.
Right, freedom of speech. These guys are just talking about their freedom of speech. Anti-West, the same way that any hardline Islamists would see Charlie Hebdo's offices making fun of the Prophet Muhammad as being extremely anti-Islamist. Obviously, you can't equate the two.
We can't equate the two, not at all. One comes from hate to a terrorist organization. Right. Someone is hating on ISIS and whoever supports ISIS. And the other way, it was a group that got angry about a magazine making fun of the Prophet.
Right.
And they didn't like that, and they took that action. So it's two completely different contexts, but the situation exemplifies that we are getting into a situation where violence generates more violence. And we see it with the airstrikes, but the airstrikes are justified, if you will. No violence should be justifiable, but they're justified because they're in the context of an organized military action. But these are things that are hurting civilians.
Right. But either way, though, what happens here, though, it underlines the effect that ISIS is having in countries, even where they're not necessarily operating and carrying out attacks. You're still seeing things like this happening all the time. You're seeing protests in Tunisia and stuff, where you see less of ISIS as opposed to Libya or Yemen, or well, starting in Yemen now. But I mean, even where they're not, you're seeing conflicts because of them, and it's like it's really showing the effect that they're having, unfortunately, and in a negative way. Obviously.
But it's happening because of the response of the Western world. Immediately start pushing away
But
Muslims.
in a country like Turkey, you'll always have extreme this side, extreme that side, because it's secular, and because given their geographic location, you're always going to have extremes in either way. We want to know what you guys think about all of this. Is it even possible that the U.S. could have had any involvement, or is this guy's Mr. Ali Osmanzor just anti-America? Let us know what you guys think by commenting, and of course, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the Lip TV for more.